There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Maui Nui is on a mission to help balance axis deer populations for the good of our environment, communities, and food systems on the island of Maui. They've shared over 126,000 pounds of nutrient-dense protein with the Maui community. Secure your spot now. Become a snack subscriber and join in helping to build more resilient food and ecosystems on Maui. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MauiNui venison.com and use promo code BEAR for 20% off your first order.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and this is a production of the Bear Grease podcast called The Bear Grease Render, where we render down, dive deeper, and look behind the scenes of the actual Bear Grease podcast. Presented by FHF Gear, American-made, purpose-built hunting and fishing gear that's designed to be as rugged as the places we explore.
Brent, I appreciate you got your Hunter Orange wedding ring on today.
I am.
That way you don't get shot walking through the woods.
Welcome to the Bear Grease Render. This is our Christmas episode.
Oh,
did you guys know it?
I did.
Where's my present?
This is the Christmas episode. It's great to have everybody. We've got a great group of people today. We're actually going to have there is one very special guest, surprise Christmas guest that's going to be coming in here in just a minute. And here she comes now. Juju Newcomb. Hey, Juju.
Is this making an official tradition since it's the second year in a row?
Give Juju your headset. This is my mother, Juju Newcomb. She just has a small Christmas message for all of us. She's brought what have you brought us, Juju?
The Christmas cookies I bring every year.
Okay.
Except I do have to admit I had a little help this year.
Okay.
My sister Cindy told me how good the Sam's decorated Christmas cookies were.
Okay.
And I had a busy week, but I didn't want to forget that it's Christmas and we got to celebrate a little bit with cookies.
Okay.
So the next best thing was nothing. So
okay, so we have a beautiful plate. Brent, why don't you describe these cookies?
We got white and green tree-shaped cookies that are decorated with icing and little sprinkles.
I liked how my mom brought those in a plastic box, took them in my house, and then put them on a Christmas plate and put cellophane over them.
It just looks better. It just looks better.
Okay, Juju, your Christmas message. What would you like to say to the Bear Grease people?
I just want to say I can't believe it's been a year. I remember last year Bailey was with us.
Bailey was here,
She gave such a sweet little message. I was hoping she'd be here today.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, and I love reading y'all's comments to Clay.
She is very protective of me.
Yes.
She's not.
Especially love is when you mention your kids and how you're happy that Clay can do a podcast that the kids can listen to.
Yeah.
And I just think that is super. So, Merry Christmas. I hope y'all have a great Christmas to celebrate with your families.
Thank you, Juju. Thank you. Excellent.
She reminded me of this is a review that I saw today. And
This is off of iTunes?
yeah, we need to pray for this guy because apparently he died in the middle of it. It says, both shows are great. I hope Country Life sticks around. But he gave us 5 stars before he died.
That's it. All right. Well,
Thanks, Juju.
Thank you, Juju. Thank you, Juju. Hey, pass those around. Pass the cookies around.
Green.
Okay, so we
Green
have
for me.
Brent Reeves here from the This Country Life podcast. Brent, I'm going to come back to you, and I want to talk about the Meteor Live shows that you were just on.
Cool.
I hear you were a big hit. We have a very special guest. He's been on here a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Bear John
Probably
Newcomb.
the greatest hunter I know.
Yeah, me too.
This season,
Yeah, my
for
favorite
sure.
Newcomb hunter right here.
You know how I describe when I'm trying to tell people about Bear? I'm like, if you turned me and Bear loose in the same woods with a bow and said, the guy who kills a deer first wins a car.
Right.
Like,
You're walking home.
I mean, I'd probably be walking home.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was at school the other
tracks.
day talking to Bear, and he was like,
Did you hold on? Did you hear that beep?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
People have accused me of that being a microwave going on.
he's heating up a burrito while we're having it.
No, that's not a microwave. For some reason, my my computer beeps. So carry on though, Josh.
I was talking to Bear the
Explain
other
that.
day, and he's got one tag left, right, Bear?
Yep, one doe tag.
One doe tag, and he said, "I'm going to take it with a traditional bow."
Mm-hmm. A self bow.
And he found a good spot, but he concocted this scenario that I thought that will never work. I tried to be supportive, but I was
Right.
like, that'll never work. He comes back the next day.
Well, that's why he's here. Later, he's going to tell us what happened.
This,
So
what's the title of this method? The scent pouch.
Scent bundle.
the scent bundle. Bear has a new strategy we're going to talk about.
Have you heard
the
this?
Scent
Have you heard
bundle.
this?
No.
Oh man,
Oh.
it's fabulous.
Yeah. So Bear John's here. 2 Bear John's left. Colby Moorhead of Bear Hunting Magazine.
The man.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
You've been on here several times.
Yep.
So Colby, so for 8 years before I worked for Meat Eater, I owned and operated Bear Hunting Magazine, the world's only print bear hunting magazine. Been in print for over 23 years. Colby worked with me for several years and pretty much was running the magazine for me. And then when I went to Meat Eater, Colby now owns, just miraculously, just like, bam, we don't even know how it happened. But Colby now
It just
owns and
happened.
operates Bear Hunting Magazine,
Yes, sir.
which we gave a little plug last week for Full Cry.
Oh yeah.
So now this week it's Bear Hunting Magazine.
I
So
like it.
now you need to subscribe to Bear Hunting Magazine. I mean, it's just
It's
got
great.
all types of bear hunting across the country, outfitters, all kind of stuff. It's
Yep.
great.
Digging
Good to have
into
you,
the
Colby.
cool stuff. Good to be here.
Yep. To Colby's left, Josh Lambridge, Spillmaker. Great to
Greetings,
see you.
everyone.
Josh is the fashionista of the Bear Grease podcast. I wish it was me. I mean, you're wearing a Howler shirt with the little
got some embroidery on the shoulder.
little embroidery. I mean, you just always look cool.
Well,
I mean, you are
just
wearing
happens.
muck boots though.
mud boots covered in deer brains.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're looking good,
There's a
Josh.
story.
You're looking good.
Yeah.
To Josh's left, Gary Believer Newcomb, which it's very important. That's usually here, but it's very important that he's here today because on this episode of the Render, which if you're new to this, the Render is when we talk about the podcast that just came out, and we did something this week that we have never done in the history of Bear Grease. Is
You basically took a vacation.
we reran a classic, Josh. That's what it's
Brad
called.
too.
Reran a
That was
classic.
last week or week before.
So we're going to talk about the ripples, the ripples in the world that happened when episode 1 of Bear Grease hit the planet. So, Brent, you went to the live show.
Kansas City.
How was it?
The green room there, a lot better than this one.
Wow.
Here's
Okay.
what I'm going to say.
This one's got Christmas cookies.
When they said, you'll go back here, I was talking with Chester, and Chester Floyd. Chester's like, come back here, man. The green room's back here. We're going to chill back here before the show and everything. And there's coffee, tea, cookies, an assortment of nuts. What's that crazy tray name that's got
Charcuterie board.
Yeah, I'm scared to say that. Anyway, That thing's on there.
Okay.
You come up here to the world headquarters. If you're thirsty, you better have brought some water with you. Or Misty will make coffee and bring it out here.
How did this turn into
You need a coffee
a
pot.
backhand?
A
I don't
coffee
know.
pot is what we need out here, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's 3 years, man.
Well, let me give you some advice.
Thank you.
This is the first time anybody's ever even suggested it. Have you not seen the suggestion box?
No. I haven't.
Okay.
But that's it.
Other than all the negative things that are happening here, how was the live show?
Oh, the live show was great. It was wonderful.
Stuck on the green room.
I'm still in the green room. It was good, man. It was so much fun, And we get to talk to people occasionally, through social media that listen to the show. But to be able to look at them in the eyeballs and talk to them, it was a lot of fun.
How many people you think were there?
I was over 2,000.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huge auditorium.
Yeah, it's big. It was. I want to think the seating capacity was like 2,300, and when it wasn't 100% sellout, but it was like individual seats here and scattered out. It was maybe 10 seats left out of that thing.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun.
And they had you tell the story. Yeah. Brent told me, he was like, right before the show, Ranella was like, hey, Brent, why don't you tell that story about that crackhead that was painting the red car in his garage?
Yeah.
And Brent was like, what? I mean, like, of everything that Steve has ever heard come out of Brent's mouth or heard about Brent, or I don't even know if he heard you tell that story.
Yeah, I think I told that to him on the first time I was on his podcast.
Okay, and Brent was like, okay.
That's the story that you want to hear. But yeah,
So why don't you tell that one to us?
he digs it. That was you mean to tell it
Just
now?
just like tell it, just like
here's a condensed version of
yeah.
U.S. Marshals had a warrant for a guy,
Mm-hmm.
and a big methamphetamine distributor, and they had tracked him down to a rural farmhouse in Bradley County, and they contacted us. Our team goes down there. We split up, hit the house, and it's like, I can't remember. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we split up into 2 teams. One hits the house, one hits a garage that there was a light on, and that was the one that I went on. And we went in and we opened the door, expecting the guy to be in there cooking meth. So we're all masked up and got all the safety equipment on, and we hit the door and opened it up, and that guy's sitting there on a bucket with a foam paintbrush, painting his car. It's like
With a foam paintbrush?
like at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, he's got paint all over him, and he's been painting this one fender. And I told on there it was like it had 40 coats, like more coats of paint on it than the Batmobile. And he's just back and forth, just empty cans of paint all around him. And he had been up for like 9 days straight.
Oh, my God.
So
Painting
pretty
that
wild.
fender.
Painting that fender. He's doing a heck of a job.
Wow.
But
Rational thinking
Anyway, that's-
isn't something you generally do after being awake for 9
that's the
days.
story that he wanted to hear. And I told one about a canned ham that everybody really enjoyed.
Tell us that one.
My mother-in-law, after my 3rd or 4th episode came out, she sent me a text. My mother-in-law is the absolute, she is like Juju Part 2. I mean, she is just the sweetest thing ever. But she has no clue about hunting, fishing, anything outdoors. But she loves that I love it. And she sent me this text message and said, Brent, I loved listening to your episode. It's so good. She's like, I can just see all the things and hear about the stuff that my dad used to talk about when he was doing all the stuff that you're doing. She said, I just got a question about one of the commercials. She said, where can we get some of those hams? And I thought, hams? We don't advertise hams. And I sent her a text back. I said, I don't know what you're talking about, Mama. And this is my mother-in-law, but we all call her Mama. And she said, oh, yeah, your boss, Steve, he never goes hunting unless he's taking those canned hams with him. And we want.
He's even got a trailer he puts his canned ham in.
Yeah.
We want to get some of those.
He even gets on top of them in glasses sometimes.
So I did a screenshot of a canned ham and sent it to her. I said, this is what he's talking about, Mom. She's like, oh, well, I was just wanting to support your company.
Canned ham.
Yeah.
Canned ham.
Those canned hams are great.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, I think that since this is a podcast about mountain lions. And Colby, you brought up an interesting point.
I did.
Tell me.
I was just excited to come to this one because it's almost like the first render. This episode never had a render.
Yeah.
It did,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
right.
episode. So when
I was
Bear
pumped.
Grease, this is kind of a time when we're like opening up the back pages of the Bear Grease podcast. When we started Bear Grease, we didn't have a render. It just came out every 2 weeks. If you remember the
Yeah, I
first
forgot about
like
that.
6 or
Yeah, how many episodes was it?
I think episode 7 was the first render.
yeah,
that's
When I
yeah.
looked
So
earlier.
for like 14 weeks, it was just an episode every 2 weeks.
Boring.
And then yeah, and then we had the first render, which was kind of an experiment because I was like, I don't know if these guys are entertaining or not, and I invited some of you here to come to it.
Who was on the first render? I don't even remember.
Me, shoot, I know Malachi Nichols was on there.
That's right.
I think Dan Roop was on there. Dr. Daniel was on there for, I think, the first one. Maybe not. Maybe he was later. But anyway, the renders become an important part. So Colby said a lot of this podcast has been living rent-free in his head.
It's true.
And he's got a lot he wants to say. So
It's true.
But I thought this would be a great time for Bear to tell his story. So Josh, because Bear's story involves a cat.
Yes.
A feline, a wild cat. So what did Bear tell you at school the other day?
Well, I asked him. I said, "You got one tag left? Yeah. You're gonna take it with a trad boat? Yeah." And he said, "I found a great spot, but the wind keeps the way the wind comes down this creek." He's like, "I get winded," and he's like, "I've got this idea," and he lays this idea out to me, and I'm thinking, has anyone ever thought of doing this? I mean, I felt like I was talking to a Native American who was like,
Was he doing sign language to you?
yeah, and smoke signals. And, can we get more stereotypical here? But I was like, I mean, it's definitely not something you've ever seen on any hunting channel show or something that people talk about. So
what'd you do, Bear?
yeah,
Okay,
I don't want to
it's tough to
ruin his story,
describe.
and because he went through it real quick, and I was going through it in my head, but I want him to relay the details.
Okay, pretty much I'm sitting at a spot where there's a riverbed right behind me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a riverbed that meets up to the main river. Main river's flowing real fast, sucks all the wind south,
Okay.
and including in this little riverbed that's right behind me. All the wind there gets sucked south.
Yeah.
So even if it's north wind, the wind's going to go south right here. And I know where 3 deer are bedded because I watched them do it.
Bear told me, he said, "Dad, I walked almost 20 miles yesterday. I only found 3 deer." And I was like, it was just kind of a weird statement. And he's like, "I literally know where these 3 deer sleep." He's like, I bumped them out of the same spot. How many times?
3 times.
I mean, like, he's like,
In
when he
the
said,
same
"I know
day?
where 3 deer are," he's like,
No.
I literally know where 3 deer
It's-
sleep. They sleep right by
Yeah.
that rock every day."
They
Go
got
ahead,
really
go
hard
ahead.
to find. But so yeah, pretty much I watched them bed down one time and they winded me. Came in another time.
Now, are you hunting out of a stand?
Yeah. I was hanging a stand and I watched them go in there and bed down, and then they winded me.
Okay.
And I went in there 2 more times at like midday or like early morning, and they'd wind me. So they were bedding in the same spot, which usually they don't. And every time they'd come out of their bed, they want to go north, but they smell me.
Because
So-
the creek's carrying your scent down, even if the prevailing wind is
Yep.
favorable.
Yep. And
Okay.
so pretty much my idea was to get like a bundle of like clothes, boots, make it, stuff that smells like me, go stick it where my stand is, and then come around the backside and hunt in that riverbed. Because every time they'd spook, they'd go to the same, they'd run and they'd cross the river in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so pretty much that's
So how did you
driving
execute
deer.
that?
okay. So there's a like a trail that
And
goes.
this is before school. Like, this isn't like
yeah,
something he was doing. Like, he did this before he came to school.
Right.
So there's like a trail that kind of goes around like the backside of where these does bed. And so pretty much I woke up real early, cross the river, go around the trail, and I just creep in this riverbed right to my stand, and I just lay all my clothes
And
there.
you're assuming the 3 does that you know that you have named are not in there right now. They're out
Well-
doing what they're doing.
Well,
I mean, that's kind of the idea.
I think they're in there.
but why wouldn't they? They couldn't
because
have been, because they would have winded you.
They don't wind me until they get out in the riverbed.
They
So
get
that
out
makes
of their
sense.
bed first.
So they bed a little ways into the woods, and the
Got
wind
it.
isn't hitting them right there. And
Okay.
so pretty much I came in on this trail, set my
What'd you
scent
put
bundle.
out there?
I put
Did you put some of my stuff?
it was all my stuff.
Dad used to get mad at me for like abusing his gear, like just using it like it was my own.
too.
You too, Josh. And I'm wondering what Bear left out in the woods. He's probably like, yeah, I took your good first light, your first light puffy and your good boots.
No, I put my muck boots, pair of socks, used.
Yeah.
Just one of my big First Light jackets.
Okay, you
Hunter's
did.
orange that was covered in deer blood.
Okay.
So, it smelled like me. And I crept around the backside. While I was creeping around the backside, I spook probably 15 turkeys up above me.
That's a good
And
sign.
they all spooked towards the way that I was going. And so I get back around, I get in the main river, creep up.
It's
and then,
still dark.
Yeah, it's still dark. And I get to a spot where basically like you envision just like a riverbed, and it drops where the water usually flows.
Yep.
And there's about a 3-foot drop, and then there's some weeds growing there.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much that's the only place I can hunt where I can shoot where the deer are going to be, because the riverbed's like 30 yards wide. I can only shoot like
It's pretty much
20.
dry.
Yeah, it's bone dry. And
Remind me of Bone Dry Riverbed.
okay,
Can't carry on.
and the main river's 60 yards behind me, and pretty much I sneak in there, and I'm about like 90 yards from where these deer would usually pop out, and I get there, and I'm just sitting on my knees. It's real cold, and I sit there for probably 30 minutes, and I look up, and there's a bobcat with a squirrel in its mouth. At first, I couldn't really tell what it was. I thought it was a coyote because I was in there a couple days before and saw a coyote, tried to shoot it in that same riverbed.
Huh.
And so at first, I kind of thought it was a coyote, saw it had a squirrel in its mouth, but the closer it got, the more I realized it was a bobcat. And so I knew I couldn't really move because it was like 30 yards facing me. I'm on the ground.
And you've yet to say that you're shooting an Osage self bow made by David Albright, one of our David's really we consider him family. It's my brother's father-in-law, David Albright, and a self bow
Makes a
is the
beautiful
most
bow.
primitive of archery gear. I mean, it's essentially a bow carved out of one piece of wood. Most modern, even traditional bows are laminates. They're recurves, long bows that are made from laminated wood and different synthetics sometimes that make them more durable. A self bow is the most primitive style, so it's it shoots slow. They're a little harder to aim because the shelf of the bow is kind of out further. They're just a self bow's like hyper primitive, difficult.
Yep. And
So
pretty
you're on the
much-
ground in the creek with your self bow.
Yeah, and so I already had my bow up.
And here comes a bobcat with a squirrel in its mouth.
Yep, and he just comes straight towards me, slightly to my
Was
left.
he just like trotting along?
Yeah.
Is
just
he walking slow or trotting?
trotting?
What was the squirrel's tail doing?
No
Just
idea.
kinda like this?
The squirrel was dead, so
Okay.
I don't know.
It looked like a nice squirrel.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And he comes and he gets about 5 yards from me, and at that point he's between me and the weeds, and I was able to move a little bit, and so I moved my bow to where he's gonna be, and he comes down and he's standing right on this slope, right, where the drop is,
Mhm.
and he's probably 3 yards from me. I mean, he's probably from me to that computer behind you.
Wow.
And there's some weeds between me and him. And at this point, I'd already drawn back, and he looked at me once he got there, and
He was like,
I was just like,
oh, wow.
You got a mouthful of squirrel.
yeah.
He thought he'd beat the day, man.
And
Making my way
I just knew that
downtown.
was making my way downtown. I knew that was the only shot I was going to get, and so I shoot, and I either shot high or it hit the weeds, and it just skipped right over his back, and he pitched the squirrel and ran like 10 yards behind me and just stopped there looking at me broadside. And I guess he just didn't want to leave his squirrel, or he was curious or something. And so I just stood there, and I have a back quiver on, and I just reach back and pull out my other arrow and just draw back, and I shoot, and it kind of ducks and turns, and I just hit it right in the back of the head, and it just drops right there.
Wow.
And,
Congratulations, young man.
and so I go get the cat, get the squirrel, and no more than 7 or 8 minutes later, I just hear some cracking coming from out in front of me. And so I'm down to my last arrow. And and I see a doe coming down. And it is a doe and 2
like
fawns.
it's been scared by some dirty socks?
I mean, it was moving quick.
It's moving. If you were writing this, you would say, the doe moved at the pace as if she'd been scent bumped by a pair of dirty socks.
Well, all I can say is that I saw them go north 3 times in the morning, and this time they were going south. So, I mean, I don't know. They weren't like really spooked, and I didn't hear them.
Yeah, they
snort.
weren't running.
No, they were pretty calm. So I don't know.
If
But
he was using
that's
a
what
magic 8 ball, it would say
scent bumping-
signs point to
I actually
yes.
really appreciate that you're not giving full credit, because I think that, especially when it comes to scent, hunters completely make like real significant judgments of what an animal does, like real definitive judgments, like the animals smelled me and did this, or they didn't smell me and they did that, when it's really kind of, are you sure that's the way it happened? So I appreciate that, because when Bear told me, he was like, I'm not sure that my scent bundle pushed him this way, but
That's just because he didn't want to get in trouble.
yeah, he didn't want to get
Gary
scolded.
and I think
We
a
all
little
know what
differently
happened.
about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. She'll love looking back on these memories and seeing what you're up to today. Even better, with unlimited storage and an easy-to-use app, you can keep updating mom's frame with new photos, so it's the gift that keeps on giving. And this is not a joke. Juju Newcomb has an Aura frame, and we share photos, and they're incredible. Also, my mother-in-law has one. We have them. They truly are really good, really high quality. The Aura frame is easy to set up. It takes just 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. It also adjusts the display depending on light levels in the room to maintain the true color of your photos. For real, the digital screen is amazing. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame when you use code BEAR, B-E-A-R, BEAR. That's auraframes.com. Use code BEAR at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. I've had a Helix Sleep mattress for over 2 years, and it is for sure the nicest mattress that I've ever slept on. I've slept much better in the last 2 years, been more comfortable than I have for my whole life, and that's true. The Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Luxe Collection, the newly released Helix Elite Collection, a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers, and even a mattress made just for kids. Take the Helix Sleep Quiz and find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes, and your personalized mattress is shipped straight to your door free of charge. Helix has several different mattress models to choose from, each designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. Helix is offering 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/clay and use the code HelixPartner20. This is their best offer yet and won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. The old-timers say that the turkeys start gobbling when the leaves are as big as squirrels' ears and the red buds start popping. And we're about there. And we are there in the South. The Onyx Hunt app is one of my most valuable tools in the spring woods. With tools like coniferous versus deciduous tree distribution layer, you can save time by locating edges or transition areas of mixing habitats from home. Find an area like this with water in close proximity, and more than likely, there will be a gobbling turkey nearby. Knowing the exact boundaries of private ground ensures I stay on the right side of the fence, but can easily find public ground to go see if I can't strike a gobbler. If you do get one to sound off, using compass mode and waypoints will help you pinpoint his exact location, allowing you to move in and make the perfect setup to bring him right into your lap. Download the Onyx Hunt app today. You'll be glad you did. Onyx has a special offer for you. Use code BEARGREASE to receive 20% off your membership at onyxmaps.com/hunt this spring.
So, but they came.
Yep.
So here comes these deer.
It's the doe and 2 fawns.
So you kept hunting. You gathered up the bobcat and the squirrel.
Yep.
Just like had them sitting right beside you.
Yep. Yeah, actually, whenever I was
And you
lifting
were
my bow got stuck on the arrow that was in the bobcat's head.
And so you're going to continue to hunt.
Yep.
Okay.
And pretty much the big doe walks out 18 yards, and I have a short, wide broadhead on. That's real light. It's like a 100-grain broadhead.
So when you're shooting a traditional bow, you usually have a specialized heavy head, especially a self bow that's not shooting as hard. We didn't really have much time to get him ready for this, and so he just had like standard looking broadhead.
Yeah, and the first 2 broadheads, both the ones that I shot at the bobcat would have been perfect.
Oh, okay.
It was just kind of my backup broadhead.
Yeah.
But I didn't think very much of it. And pretty much the doe walked out at 18 yards. I shot and just hit her right behind the shoulder, and my arrow bounced off.
It literally like
made a
did
drum
not
noise.
get
Boom.
any penetration.
No. And I mean, like, it had like hair on it, but it was just laying right there, and they all just ran back into the
doe
woods
went,
and
Ow!
ran across the river. And those were the only 3 deer I could find, so I pretty much figured my hunt was over.
Wow.
It was
What a
pretty
Is your
hunt.
scent bundle still out
What do
there?
you think of that, Dad?
Oh,
I
man,
got
that's
the
awesome.
That's
Yeah. Bear called me on that. He said it had a pretty cool hunt. I thought I'd better tell you. And I thought, holy cow, that little sucker. It's just crazy what he did that morning.
Yeah, I've found bobcats. Bobcats were highly elusive to me as a bow hunter for years. I didn't kill one until I was an adult. I missed 5 bobcats before I ever killed. I think I've killed 2 now with a bow. They're hard to kill. And to kill one on the ground at like to get a shot off even at like point blank range.
2 shots off.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. No, I was gonna say, remind me of the dry creek bed. Well, first of all, when you sent me the picture, I was in Alaska. No, where was I? Yeah, I was in Alaska, and he said I killed a bobcat. When I shot it, it had a squirrel in its mouth, and I was just like, oh, cool. And I see the picture, and I looked at that picture for 2 days while I was in Alaska before I finally zoomed in, and I was like, oh, there's a squirrel.
I didn't see the
Yeah.
squirrel either.
Oh, really?
Same.
The squirrel looked just
I
like
didn't
a
see
rock.
Someone
first.
pointed it
I
out.
Did you
saw
see
it
it?
immediately when you sent it to me, yeah.
Yeah. So he took the picture with the squirrel laid there. But somebody, I put that on my Instagram, and like 99% of the people were just like, "Wow, that's cool." And somebody was like, "If he shot that squirrel crossing the creek, or if he shot that bobcat crossing the creek, why aren't the bobcat's feet wet?" He was like,
He was wearing his rubber boots. He left over
the
there.
guy thought
First light rubber
like we were
boots.
trying to pull one over on the world.
Oh, gosh.
And I almost responded back to him, but I didn't. And I was going to say, my brother, have you ever seen a bobcat cross a Ozark stream? They don't get their feet wet.
Yeah.
Rock to rock.
I mean, anyway. But good hunt for sure.
You know, I asked Bear, kind of the city boy that I am at heart, what are you going to do with that squirrel? I mean, it's killed by a bobcat. Its teeth has penetrated the meat.
Mhm.
And, he said, well, I guess I'll take it home, put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
No question.
What'd you do with it, Bear?
Well, I cut a back strap out of the bobcat and cut, the legs off the squirrel and ate them for dinner.
You ate the bobcat?
Piece of it, yeah.
Was it good?
It was actually pretty good. I mean, it wasn't anything special, but like it smelled terrible when I skinned it, so
Really?
I thought it would be nasty, but it just tasted like meat.
Like pork.
Cat meat's pretty good.
Some of the best
Like
meat I've
mountain
ever had
lion.
was mountain lion that you gave me.
Mountain lion, yeah, for sure. Here's something that the bear grease world can do for me, for Meat Eater, for Steve Ranella. Welcome, Miss Newcomb. Have a seat. Dr. Misty Newcomb has just joined us. Let's give her a round of applause. Here's something that the bear grease world could do for me. On January the 9th, the audio original, The Long Hunters. How are you, Dr. Newcomb?
Good to be here.
Great to have you. Bear just told.
His
Oh,
story.
Oh, I missed
let me
it.
fill you in.
Okay.
Juju came in and gave a Christmas message to
Wow.
all of Bear Grease and
What a
brought us
special day.
cookies.
Okay.
Bear just told us about his bobcat squirrel deer hunt. It was really great.
Combo.
Pretty
Brent
cool.
told us about how he had a great time in Kansas City, probably even better than coming here. He had a better
This is the
time.
green room.
He had
Oh,
a better
man.
time
Let's
there
do something
than
about the green
with
room.
us,
Okay.
his people.
Wow.
No,
Yeah.
that's not true.
That kind of hurts.
You can't.
So,
believe that.
and now we're
But now
talking
that I'm
about.
here, I'm sure all that's
now
gonna
we're
change.
talking about the long
January 9th.
meat eater American history. The Long Hunters, 1761 to 1775. Audio
Sorry.
original, me and Steve Ranella. You can pre-order it now. But here's the deal. We have pretty big plans to make more of these. And if we sell a bunch of these, they're going to want us to do more. And so you can pre-order this, and you listen to it like an audiobook. It's going to be 5 to 6 hours. And I'm telling you, this data has never been gathered and put in one place. There was a lot of questions. The way Steve described it as the historical authors that wrote about the time periods with the Long Hunters, and even modern historical authors are often not hunters, and they don't focus on the things that hunters and really people that are living close to the land are interested in. And he had all kind of questions about a lot of different stuff. And Randall Williams, Steve, and I, we developed this book. Randall Williams did a lot of the research, and I just can't imagine someone that likes any kind of American history and deer hunting for this not to be like essential reading. Well, I would say reading material, but it's an audio original, listening material. So go, and you can pre-order it now.
Where do you go to pre-order it?
It's on,
That's a great question, Josh.
It's easy to find. It's on the Penguin Random House, Audible.
it's on Audible. Yeah,
It's on
that's right.
Audible.
Yeah, Audible.
Yeah. So anyway, do that. It'd be doing a favor to the Bear Grease world. So do that.
Are there options to like bootleg it so I don't have to pay for it?
I
But you
mean,
still get credit for it?
if you bootlegged it, I'd just let somebody know. Just like a penguin at Meat Eater.
Okay, got it.
Just so they can like put a little tally mark on it. Tally marks, that makes me think of something I learned just this week, that the Native Americans used a bear femur to keep track of different things. In the archaeological record, they would take a big bear femur and make tally marks on bear femurs.
Like notches, you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, making notches for stuff. Tally marks. Okay, that was just a little aside. Episode 1 of Bear Grease. I noted a few things about it. Brent Reeves was actually the first voice ever heard on the Bear Grease podcast.
That's not true. It was second to yours.
Are you sure? Were you not the cold open?
I was in the cold open.
Oh, but I said,
but you asked
how
me a
certain
question.
are you?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. That's
the
right.
cold open,
First
episode
interview.
1.
First interview.
Well,
So
no, it was the
close.
cold open, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then it was Brent Reeves.
100%.
And then I did my little
That's good.
open. Oh, burrito's ready.
It ain't coffee.
And then
Green room.
it was Dad talking about how he had just
Yep.
bought the propaganda.
And you know who it wasn't?
How many mountain lions have you seen?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, it matters. Of course it matters.
Well, if you'd seen a mountain lion,
It was in a mountain lion episode.
if you'd lied like these guys and
Mustache.
said that you'd seen a mountain lion,
I could have been on.
yeah,
You know,
you could have been on.
It's kind of died out a little bit, but there used to be a lot of animosity coming from old Lambridge over there about not being
Yeah.
interviewed, that everybody had been interviewed except for him.
Yeah,
I think it's because I'm not a subject matter expert on anything. I'm just a dude. I don't even know how I got this job.
he's just a dude.
You were cheap.
Cheap. Cheap. Yeah. Coley, anything stand out to you in the episode?
One of the things that has lived in my brain pretty rent-free has been Scott Brown's story about being at Walmart,
Yeah.
selling that license. Like, I think about that regularly.
That was funny.
Like I'll see something on my trail cam, and I'm like, man, I think that might be, man, I don't know.
Yeah. You're like, I don't want to be that guy.
I just wondered, and I listened to it again on the way up here, and I was thinking, well, maybe Scott don't know what a mountain lion looks like. maybe those other guys did.
Yeah, you were casting some doubt
Well, I'm
on
just
that.
saying there was 5 witnesses against
Man,
one.
when I heard, so I hadn't listened to this episode in a long time, and when I heard Scott's story, it almost made my blood boil just a little bit to think about. I mean, if I had been in that little covey of guys back there, Scott kind of fed the monster a little bit.
Well, he's also working. He's in business back there.
Yeah, his job isn't to debate.
Yeah.
His job isn't to debate because
No.
people. Oh my gosh, you will offend somebody if you correct them when it comes to something they think they've seen. But I think I would have just been like, "Oh, that's not a mountain lion. That's a bobcat. We all know it. See y'all later."
Scott Brown. If you knew
Please buy
Scott,
my Audible book.
Yeah, please
No.
check out the long gunners. And burritos are ready.
if you knew Scott Brown, I mean, this guy, he's the real deal. Outdoorsman Deluxe. His dad, Outdoorsman Deluxe. And I think Andy's dad was, he goes back, way
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And, hey, he's a killing dude. He knows the outdoors. I'd trust him anywhere. He knows what a mountain lion looks like.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe
For sure.
just by photo, but he's a real deal.
So this episode, though, I remember when we first did it. I told you in the little preamble that I was commissioned to make 3 episodes. And the first two that I made, one was with James Lawrence, and the other one was about dogs. And then the third one was the mountain lion episode. And we ended up, but the mountain lion episode was the third one. And I remember thinking when we had those 3 and we had to start that it was like a gamble to put that one first because we'd probably never make another one that was anywhere close to that good. Like I thought the Bear Grease podcast was going to be like, man, they had one good episode.
One-hit
It was
wonders.
they peaked early.
Yeah, for real. And I remember telling my boss at the time, who was Ben O'Brien, and I said, man, I think we got to swing for the fence. Because we thought about putting it later, like starting a little bit low. And to me, the James Lawrence episode ended up being as good as any we've ever done. Like, I revamped it. I did those 2. We all listened to it. It was like a 4 out of 10. And then I went back and rebuilt the whole James Lawrence episode and like put in it just. And to me, that one was like redeemed. But I remember just thinking,
Just basing off the critical review of the mountain lion one.
well, I just didn't think there was that many intriguing stories like that would draw people in. And I think we've learned that that's wrong. I mean, there's
doubt.
just with all the topics, like you think about all the topics we've covered in the last almost 3 years. I mean, from these historical figures to some of these living guys to I hear a lot of people talk about the Taxidermy Roadshow when Brent and I drove around. You remember that, Brent?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And,
I still get messages about that.
Yeah. But it was so it's interesting to go back. But I truly get more interaction around that than anything to this day. People send, for real, I'm not joking. Look at this. I'm pulling up my.
You're telling no about the flood now because here's the ones that I get that have a Black Panther in them is like, will you show this to Clay?
Yeah, exactly.
He's ignoring my
We get-
text.
No,
Yes.
I don't know, Clay.
since this podcast started, somebody sent me a Black Panther image. I'm serious.
Hey, we
look
talked
at the
about-
time on that. That came just today.
Well, let me tell you, we that very photograph right there, Steve and Giannis and I talked about that on the podcast we did in Kansas City. That picture right
Yeah.
there.
That picture's been around a long time. hasn't it?
Well, and this guy says it's from Georgia,
Yep.
and his line here would fall into category number 1 of my automated response. Sir, you are looking at an animal that is not from North America. I mean, that's a real Black Panther, but that is not from North America. A wild North American
Says
cat.
you.
Says you. Well, wait a minute. Did I just totally interrupt you while you were going to talk about
I don't think
what
so.
stood out to you?
I thought it went a really good direction.
Okay. I
will say the most surprising thing when listening to it again was I was surprised that you knew a quote from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
I was like, Clay's never watched that movie.
I don't know many pop culture
And
tidbits.
I'm not sure that we're going to call a movie that's 20-something years old pop culture, but,
It's what all the kids are watching, Misty.
well,
The old kids.
yeah, the kids your age.
Mm-hmm.
You actually got the quote a little bit out of
little bit,
context.
yeah.
It was like, well, I'm not sure that Clay has watched Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, I wasn't convinced either.
Dad, do you what? So that podcast dubbed you as the believer, Black Panther believer. What stood out to you if you heard it again? I mean, like, I don't know.
Have you changed your
three
stance?
years of being the believer, yeah, where do you stand?
Well, I tell you, I hate to say this. I mean, you talk to some pretty credible people, but they're full of hogwash.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's garbage. I don't know where these guys went to school. The game, and I love, the guys working there. I mean, they know what they're doing, but they got the Black Panther all monkeyed up. So I keep the same stance. You know,
Okay.
I know I don't believe it. I know it. I mean, it's for real.
Okay, Black Panthers.
And Ollie, what's the name of her town?
Bucksnort.
Bucksnort.
And Ollie down in Bucksnort.
Yeah, I mean, you could hear them at night.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And you can tell the difference between the
Yeah.
black one and the regular colored one just by
y'all,
their sound.
Yeah, y'all remember the early podcast. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, no, it was very good. I enjoyed it probably more this time than the first.
Yeah.
I found it shocking that they would get only one verification on 150 reported
Yeah.
sightings. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, Josh, what do you think? Not necessarily about the podcast, but just about going back and listening to the first episode of Bear Grease.
You know, I'm a big fan of reruns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to watch things and listen to things over again because I feel like my attention span is a little weak sometimes, and so going back, I pick up on things that I missed before.
Mm-hmm.
I all credit due to Myron Means, brilliant guy. He's been on here, fantastic guy. There's got to be more mountain lions out there than we're seeing. I just believe it.
I'm gonna defend him.
I don't. Well, I've known Brent to lie,
I got a
not
vaccination.
all the time.
Yeah.
So he says he's seen 2.
Yeah.
I believe he's seen at least 1.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I've seen 2 with witnesses both times.
Mm-hmm.
They had 4 witnesses. 3 other witnesses besides myself the first
But
time.
a lot of them were coon hunters.
Yeah.
No, that was they.
And they weren't vaccinated.
The second one was a coon hunter. The first time was broad daylight with 3 other guys in the cab of the truck,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. I mean, it
And
was
it was
plain.
where? Where did you see said
Ashley
cat?
County. Ashley County, outside between Hamburg and Fountain Hill.
That narrows it down.
It does.
Bear, have you ever seen a mountain lion? Bear's lost his headset. Never saw a mountain lion? No.
I think that I would believe it if Bear had seen it.
Yeah.
Because I think anyone that's out in the woods as much as Bear is, Bear sees the craziest stuff. Like constantly seeing crazy stuff. Constantly bringing home videos of like.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying. I would only believe it if Bear saw it.
Mm-hmm. You would believe it if Bear saw it? Oh, here we go. What's Bear? What's your rebuttal, Bear?
Well, I was talking with one of my buddies the other day, and like sometimes whenever I hunt on like ATV trails, if like an ATV is coming down and I don't want them to see my spot, like if I'm like on my way into a spot, I hit the side of the road and hide behind a tree, and they have no clue that there was a dude within 10 feet of them.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of people have probably walked right under one. I mean,
we got a believer on our hands.
got
I mean,
a little
I
What
would say
about
you
the
couldn't.
fact? How do you?
A little
What about the
believer
fact
blood
that
in
there's
it.
not any here? How would this fit into your argument?
There's just we've got plenty of verified,
Credible
Yeah,
witnesses.
Credible-ish.
Right here.
Credible-ish.
I mean,
Yeah.
you would think you'd see like a track or something though in a puddle, but
Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. She'll love looking back on these memories and seeing what you're up to today. Even better, with unlimited storage and an easy-to-use app, you can keep updating mom's frame with new photos, so it's the gift that keeps on giving. And this is not a joke. Juju Newcomb has an Aura frame
and we share photos, and they're incredible. Also, my mother-in-law has one. We have them. They truly are really good, really high quality. The Aura frame is easy to set up. It takes just 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. It also adjusts the display depending on light levels in the room to maintain the true color of your photos. For real, the digital screen is amazing. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame when you use code BEAR, B-E-A-R, BEAR. That's auraframes.com. Use code BEAR at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. The old-timers say that the turkeys start gobbling when the leaves are as big as squirrels' ears and the red buds start popping. And we're about there. And we are there in the South. The onX Hunt app is one of my most valuable tools in the spring woods. With tools like coniferous versus deciduous tree distribution layer, you can save time by locating edges or transition areas of mixing habitats from home. Find an area like this with water in close proximity, and more than likely, there will be a gobbling turkey nearby. Knowing the exact boundaries of private ground ensures I stay on the right side of the fence, but can easily find public ground to go see if I can't strike a gobbler. If you do get one to sound off, using compass mode and waypoints will help you pinpoint his exact location, allowing you to move in and make the perfect setup to bring him right into your lap. Download the onX Hunt app today. You'll be glad you did. onX has a special offer for you. Use code BEARGREASE to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt this spring. We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam motor treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that Seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, Seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who's used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more. Man, I find that this statistic can be verified and is 100% accurate. 98% of American hunting license holders, America's hunters, cannot tell the difference between a canine and a feline track.
I was just thinking the same thing. I don't know if I saw it in the woods if I would be able to differentiate.
I have gotten so many pictures of big old tracks.
Dog tracks. Mm-hmm.
Canine track. You know, somebody else sent it to me and be like, is this a mountain lion? And I mean, it's a canine track. And it's kind of hard to tell. And I've actually had to study it quite a bit. The 2% of people that do know, y'all just took me at my word at the solidity and certainty of my statistics. I appreciate that. I just kind of made that up.
We're used to it.
Is the hound hunters that are pursuing lions, like they can tell driving down the road at 30 miles per hour tracking the snow that if it's a cat or if it's a bear or if it's a dog. You know,
is there a distinguishing feature that
100%?
What is it?
Well, a cat track is much more oval, and it's almost like you could place, this isn't the best description, but you could like place a stick in between the pad and the toes, and it would be like more of a straight line. A canine has 4 toes that are going to be on this pad, and they're going to be the way there's
arc.
There's kind of like 2 low and then 2 high.
Okay.
And then a cat pad has the 3 lobes on the pad of the foot. Would you say that's about right, Brandon?
Yeah, I think so.
And a canine always is going to have claws. A cat is basically never going to see a claw mark in the track. And the other thing that I think would surprise most people is that a pretty darn good sized mountain lion track is small. I mean, and I'm not an experienced mountain lion hunter, but I have lion hunted a couple times. And that cat hanging on the wall right there was a male, weighed 112 pounds, was killed in Panhandle of Idaho when it was 2 degrees. Killed with a traditional bow.
He's pointing to a hide that's
shot it
hanging
out of a tree.
on the wall back here.
And when I saw that track in the snow with my friend Leon Brown in Idaho, it was it was pretty small, I thought. And I mean, that's not a big cat. I mean, a big one weighs 140 pounds. I mean, that's a monster. So, but that was an adult male cat, younger side of adult. And I mean, that track wasn't as big as a Coke can, I bet.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think a mountain lion track is much smaller than what you would think.
Okay.
So that's just my input. I've never seen a mountain lion. I can't wait till the day
in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, yeah. In Arkansas.
How many cats have you seen with your eyes?
That's a good question. I've seen that one. And one time in British Columbia, a cat jumped out in the road while we were driving down the road bear hunting and just loped down the road in front of us for about 30 yards and then
same scenario
darted
as
off.
Brent.
Yeah. Exact same scenario as Brent. What are you pointing at, Brent?
The squirrel and waiting on the bobcat.
I think I've only seen – those are the only two I can remember. Yeah, and that's a lot of beating around out west too.
So one was in Idaho and one was in British
One was
Columbia.
British Columbia and the one was in Idaho. That's right. Yep. I've now seen some wolves up close. I just got back from Alaska. There's going to be some more on this coming out. We filmed our Alaskan trip, and so there's sometime in the next year on the Meat Eater YouTube channel. There's going to be us trapping wolves in Alaska.
I can't wait.
That's pretty cool.
Man, it was an incredible trip. I hadn't told Dad about it. It was that part of Alaska. It was in southeast Alaska. It was the most spectacular natural beauty of any place I've ever been. We were on the ocean, so we were at sea level, down low, but there are big snow-capped mountains basically in every direction. But there was a lot of glacier activity where we were at. I was reading today about the idea of wilderness, and there's a term that's called sublime, which has been watered down by modern culture to kind of take away its meaning. But the word, the old nature writers, the original nature writers that kind of forged and articulated the ideas around American wilderness, used the word sublime to describe interactions with raw pieces of nature. And sublime, it almost has the feeling of like a supernatural experience, like
euphoric.
Euphoric, the way they described it was like an overlap of the natural and spiritual world coming together. When I was in Alaska, we went to a glacier that met the ocean, which is pretty cool. Some glaciers don't. This glacier, I mean, you could have rowed a boat right up to it, and we did.
Right.
When I saw it, I believe we were over 2 miles away. We kind of came around this bend, and we had been seeing, like when you get like 4 miles from this glacier, you're just out in the ocean, and you start seeing chunks of ice. You know, if you didn't know any better, you'd just be like, what is that? You drive over there, and there'd be a chunk of ice about as big as an ice chest floating, just clear chunk of ice. You'd be like, wow, that's wild. You go another quarter mile, and there's a chunk of ice as big as a black bear floating. Oh, wow, look at that. You go another 300 yards around the bend, and there's the ice chest as big as, or piece of ice as big as a Volkswagen floating. You go around the corner again, and there's 200 blocks of ice that are big chunks.
Like a giraffe.
Like a giraffe. Yeah. And then, you know, basically there's like chunks of this glacier falling into the ocean and then melting as they move out. The closer you get to the glacier, the bigger the icebergs get. When we got 2 miles away, you could see this glacier. It glowed blue. And Dad, I have never had an experience like this before. It was not concocted. I wasn't expecting it, but like the hair on the back of my neck stood up when I saw that glacier. And I mean, for real, this is not a figure of speech. Like, people say my mouth dropped open.
Yeah.
Like I kind of came to awareness after a few minutes of looking at this glacier from 2 miles away.
Wow.
And my mouth was open. I was just like, holy cow. And it was a sublime experience. And as soon as you rounded the corner and you could see the glacier, the air temperature dropped, probably 7 or 8 degrees, started getting cold. And then you come up on a glacier that's like as big as your house. And we floated around it. And the ice that was the densest was blue. It glowed blue like a stained glass window.
Wow.
And when we got up to it, I mean, it's hard to describe. It felt to me like a portal to another realm, because it's
otherworldly.
It was. I mean, it was just like, and when we got within sight of it, I asked David Bennett, who was the guy I was trapping with, this incredible guy, Styking God Service. I asked him, I said, "Will we see this thing calve?" That's what they call when chunks of ice fall off of the glacier into the ocean. And he was like, "Oh yeah." I mean, I didn't know if it was something that happened like once every 2 weeks or if it happened like all the time. And we're within sight of the glacier. I say, "Will it calve?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." I turn around and we're now over a mile away from it. And I hear what sounds like thunder. I mean, I actually looked up because it was puzzling to me, the sound I heard. I thought it was thunder. And all of a sudden I see, like in slow motion, this huge chunk of ice fall off. And it just looks like slow motion. And it was a chunk of ice about as big as my house.
Wow.
And I saw it hit the water and just... Now, that wasn't the thunder. The thunder was it cracking off, the noise it made when it cracked and fell. And then it hit the water, and you see the ocean just explode. And then like 3 minutes later, the boat goes, like the wave comes out. And I was like, holy cow, we are going to see this thing calve. And on the way to it, I saw 3 huge chunks of ice fall off. And so I thought, man, we're just going to get like right up on this glacier and just watch a show. And we got there, and by the time you get up to it, there's so much ice. You're just breaking ice, basically. You're like parting. It's like a slushy, on the top of the ground with big chunks of ice, small chunks,
right? Chunks
as big as your house, and we stayed in front of that glacier for probably 40 minutes, just kind of floating around within like 200-300 yards of it, like as close as you wanted to get.
Right.
And I never saw another big piece fall off.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah, it was just like totally erratic.
Interesting.
That blue is the bluest thing I've ever seen. Misty sent me the picture. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Did you? And I forgot to ask you. Did y'all get any of that ice and melt it and drink it?
No. We talked about it. Dave Bennett's told me that there was a time period, maybe in the 80s, when they were selling glacier ice to rich folks to put in their drinks because it didn't melt as quick because it was denser. And those icebergs had rocks in the ice. It'd be like clear ice, like as big as your house. You couldn't see all the way through it just because it was like
ice on the rocks.
Well, there was
it
rocks.
trenches out
There would be like
when that glacier moves.
There would be like rocks inside the ice.
I just wonder what it tasted like.
I did suck on one piece.
Did it taste like water?
Tasted like
regular water?
Tasted like regular water.
Did it taste like an extinct disease or
mastodon? An extinct mastodon?
COVID part 1.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Misty? Nothing?
Did you hear about that? It just reminded me of that chunk of that glacier that broke off in Greenland. Did you hear about that?
Mm-mm.
There's a chunk of a glacier that broke off of a fjord in Greenland that is 50 miles long and 12 miles wide. It's adrift now. They say that it melting will literally cause the ocean level to rise.
Yeah.
just from that one
From
chunk
that
of that
one.
glacier. It's
I
so
read about
big.
that.
Wow, that's incredible. The glaciers are melting. I asked David. That's an interesting statement, and if you say that and want to sound intelligent, you have to put a little context around it. The glaciers have been melting for 10,000 years. I mean, that's the way, so you can't just say the glaciers are melting and it be like some statement of alarm. Like the glaciers have been melting for 10,000 years. That is fact. What they're saying is that the glaciers are melting faster than we've ever seen them in recorded history.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's true or not. I assume it is. David Bennett's told me that he has seen that glacier retreat about a half a mile in his lifetime.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like a lot.
It does. But when you consider that, like 20 miles away where he lived, however many miles away he lives, there was a time when there was like a mile and a half of ice pack over the place he lives that was connected to this glacier. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's like like an unfathomable amount of ice has melted in the last 10,000 years. But yeah, I agree. So it's just interesting. A lot of people have asked me, well, were they melting? I was like, yeah, saw it with my own eyes. I even took part in it, but I did take a chunk of ice at a different glacier, Brent. We saw two. Had a little chunk of ice put in my mouth.
What kind of boat were you in?
Well, we stayed on a 42-foot fishing boat called the Sandpiper, which was his crabbing boat. David is a commercial crabber and has been involved in commercial. They call it commercial fishing, but commercial crabbing since he was 12 years old. We stayed on that boat. The inside of that boat, it's kind of like a camper. It would be almost identical to a camper. There's a kitchen, there's a bathroom, there's a kitchen table, there's bunk beds. But we had a skiff, which was a heavy-duty aluminum boat made of quarter-inch aluminum with a 200 horse motor on the back of it that we used to scoot around. So our base camp was the Sandpiper. We stayed on there. Yeah, it was incredible. 6 days on the ocean up there. It
Amazing.
really was incredible.
Yeah.
It truly was. Yeah, I knew David from Bear Hunting Magazine.
Yeah.
David's a longtime Bear Hunting Magazine outfitter, and he sells spring bear hunts and some of that real good hunting up there.
Yeah. Solid guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So how many wolves did you get?
We trapped 4 wolves. It was
Awesome.
very, very unique.
If you look at Clay's Instagram, he's holding one of them up, and he says this is a 90-pound wolf, and it looks
enormous.
It looks enormous. It looks like it's. I mean, like if that wolf is 90 pounds, Clay's
You'd
about
hate to see
95.
150.
Well, yeah.
Well,
Photographs are always deceptive because scale means everything.
Kind
And
of going full circle.
Let's bring this back to the mountain lions. Like if you have a tan cat, a tan house cat, Nana's tan cat house cat, like 5 feet from your trail camera, he's going to look big as opposed to Nana's cat 30 feet away.
I got the cure for all of that. We talked about that, Steve and I and Giannis and Spencer and everybody on the podcast. We talked about this the other day, and after it was over with, I had this idea. It's like you get in an argument with somebody and you're leaving and you're driving down the road and like, golly, I should have told him this. This would have really got its goat. But I saw a thing. I was watching something on National Geographic, and there was a guy in this shark tank, in this shark cage, and they're trying to figure out how big these sharks are swimming out in front of them because there's nothing there to judge, the shark against. So he had a laser made underwater, and it shoots out a beam of light, or 2 dots that are 1 foot apart, or a meter, I think is what they used. But a meter apart.
We don't even know how far that is.
Yeah, I mean, we fought a war to keep from doing that. So anyway, he was shining out there and taking photographs of these sharks with those 2 points on there. Then they could take the photograph and say, okay, that shark is however many long. He's 15 feet long or whatever. So, game camera. We need those 2 little lights on there.
Oh, okay.
It shoots a beam out at a predetermined distance apart, and if that, regardless of where that animal is, when it hits him, you'll be able to measure it out.
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that if the lasers were exactly aligned, the distance wouldn't like get wider or get narrower with
perfectly
distance.
parallel.
Yeah, they'd have to be perfectly
Yeah,
parallel.
that's what it was, and that's
Yeah,
what this guy
interesting.
designed.
That's a good idea, Brett. That's going to be on. I'm glad you brought that up. That's going to be on our new trail camera.
The Bear Grease trail camera.
In first light specter.
Yeah. No, I was just saying the scale means a lot with those wolves. I agreed with you, and that's the reason I put that they weighed 90 pounds because
Somebody would be like, "That's a 300."
somebody would have thought that's a
How's he
130
holding that
pound.
up?
That's a 130 pound wolf. If you'd have seen them in person, you would have been like, "Yeah, that's probably about a 90 pound wolf." But when you're holding it
I
up,
can assure you I would not have.
when you're holding it up, that wolf is like closer to the camera than you, and they just look bigger than they were.
I wish you would have held it more like a baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way he was-
Rocking it.
Yeah. No, it
kinda
was
held it like a
interesting putting a
5-year-old
wolf up.
holds a cat.
It did not escape me that a wolf is a controversial animal to kill. Like not at all. And I inside the film that we make, when we actually show people how we were trapping these wolves, we're gonna handle it really with a lot of humility and really tell the story. But man, here's the deal: people that live in wolf country that care anything about wildlife, vast majority of them are like all for. Well, they don't necessarily hate wolves. They're all for managing wolves.
Managing.
People that have little functional connection to wolves, like me, love the idea of wolves, are typically want to ceremonialize them. Want them protected. Man, the people that love wildlife usually want them managed, and I think they should be managed just like any other game animal. I want wolves on the landscape in Alaska, and of all people, David Bennett does too. David wolf traps in the areas that he moose and deer hunts, and like I said in my post, it's not. I mean, like we know we didn't try to paint the picture like we're changing the world by trapping a few wolves, but David says that he can, on a micro scale, positively impact deer and moose numbers in the places he hunts by trapping.
Yeah, same thing. Same thing with coons.
Yep,
Coons and turkeys.
Yeah,
and I had somebody on the gram be like, "Prove to me that taking those wolves out is helping deer numbers," and I didn't want to embarrass the guy. I'm a nice man. I like to show people some dignity, so I didn't even respond. Wolves, the statistic, if you looked it up, it will say that a wolf eats 7 pounds of meat per day. Now that, granted, that's an average.
Wow.
That they probably don't eat that every day, but when you average it out, like they're eating a lot of meat.
That's a lot of meat.
Let's do the math real quick.
let me help
Let's
you.
do
on
the
this.
math real
I'm a
quick of
big
how
boy and I
many
don't eat
deer
that much
we
meat.
literally.
Let's do that. Let's do that wolf. What was the estimated age on that wolf?
It was an
Young.
adult male, so it's like if it was like a dog, I would say it was at least a 3 or 4 year old. It may have
Okay.
been an 8-year-old.
Let's just say 3.
So 3 years.
Times 365.
Well, we would be doing math on the years that he was going to continue to live. Let's say he lived another 3 years.
You're already to my answer. How many is he going to eat next year?
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. So
None.
3 years times 365. That's 1,095 days. Let's just say times 5 pounds of meat per day. That's 5,400 pounds of meat.
Okay, do it for 1 year. Do it for 1 year.
Okay, so
for
365 times, and I'm just going to say 5 pounds of meat per day
Okay.
times
Do it in
5.
fractions.
That's 1,800 pounds.
So that wolf is
A
going
ton.
to eat several
A ton.
big game
yeah.
animals himself.
Yeah. I mean, so like if you take a wolf off the landscape, I mean, I don't see, a lot of times solutions like that, it's the narrative and the talking points for predator hunters that want, or any kind of person that's wanting to justify something they want
I'm
to
gonna
do.
be like,
Sometimes-
save the caribou. Somebody play Sarah McLachlan. Like,
Yeah.
kill
Well,
the wolves.
I don't want to simplify the narrative because it's easy to be like, oh, save deer, kill a wolf. Like it's really probably not quite that simple, but it is. like wolves don't have any other option. They got to eat meat. And they have the right to. And we love wolves on the landscape. But as David says, you just got to manage them.
Yeah,
that's true. David said, I like corn, but I want to eat it and harvest it too. It was funny when he said it. I thought it would punch a little harder. No, so the wolf thing.
Chance. Like, I know. Let it fall,
I started telling
like,
it, and I was like, "This isn't going to be that funny," and so I just sutured it up real quick.
Yeah, you did. I needed more time to process.
Yeah,
you're supposed to do the old Johnny Carson.
Millisecond.
Ooh, Obama. When you do one of those.
No, I wanted to talk just a little bit about Alaska, so people will be able to see that, and that'll be after they buy the Long Hunters audio original book.
Right.
So that'll be great.
January 9th.
Yeah.
Well, they can order it now, Colby.
Oh yeah.
And you could order it as a Christmas gift and then do a little IOU.
Those are the best.
Yeah, a little slip of paper that says, I've ordered you Meteor's American History, Long Hunters, 1761 to 1775.
Works for magazines too.
Cassette, 8-track.
Yeah, you can do that with Bear Hunting Magazine.
Bear Hunting Magazine Christmas gift. Yeah, get the package.
Yep, delivering it to your door.
3-year subscription and a hat.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any, just like, what would be a really just significant analysis of the replay of this Bear Grease Classic?
Dr. Back didn't believe me, and he's still wrong. Next.
I think you should have played back-to-back with this replay when James Lawrence and Gerald just kind of spontaneously started talking about seeing Black Panthers when they were kids.
That was at Bear Camp.
And we were at Bear Camp, and y'all did that podcast, and they just, they had clearly not heard the podcast, and they just started talking about.
I don't think James and Gerald listen to many podcasts. No. I get the feeling.
Well, anyway, it was pretty awesome because they just walked right into the story, telling these stories about. And they had tails and they had colors, and and it was really funny. And you're just sitting there having to be quiet. And I thought that was and you said
I was like Scott Brown.
You were Scott.
I wish you would have played the two side by side.
The tables have turned.
That's right.
That was good. I forgot about that. That
Colby,
was fun.
closing comments.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Give him your headset. I want to hear from you.
My mom swears up and down she saw a Black Panther in New Boston.
Really?
Texas.
There you go.
Yeah, by the prison.
Really?
And then she's always talked about it, and then it came up again after this podcast, and I couldn't break her heart.
You just let it go.
I just let it go.
What is it? I let it go the other day with a guy that I was talking to, and he wasn't informed of the podcast. He hadn't listened to anything, and he said, "Clay, I want to show you this picture. Look at this." And he thought it was a Black Panther. And he straight up, and I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I was just like, I'll be darned. You think that's a Black Panther? I don't know. I just I just didn't have time. You know what I mean? It was like, listen, here, come here. He was an older gentleman. I'd be like, have a seat. I got something I want to talk to you about. And they're not real. So your mom.
Yeah. And as far as the Bear Grease Hall of Fame, as far as episodes, I think that's the first one.
Really? You're saying you liked it the best?
Well, I just think that all the ripples that worked its way, it was really identifying the trajectory of it.
There was some things I would have done different in the sequence of storytelling. That's what I heard. When I heard it, I was delightfully. I'm really nervous about going back and listening to old stuff, even from 3 weeks ago.
For real,
because I hear stuff and I wish I did it different. The podcast was good. I should have told Scott stuff way up closer to the front. And now I don't have as long of interview. I talked to Myron for 30 minutes, kind of nonstop almost. We pretty much don't do that anymore.
I feel like you don't talk as much inside of the interviews. You give the sound bites to the people, and
I quit.
You do more.
Yep. You're right. I do. I try to. I ask people a question, but then I trim out my question. And it's all about an efficient listen.
Yeah.
Because, I think you cover 2 hours worth of content and 1 hour's worth of media when you listen to a good Bear Grease. And that's one way I've made it more efficient is that
create context with the
So good point. Good point. Josh?
The older I get, the more I believe what I think I believe. And so I'm all for confirmation bias.
You're just for it.
I'm 100%
Big fan of
for it.
confirmation bias.
Yeah. I mean, I want to believe what I want to
Hey,
believe.
Bear.
Why not?
So my dad, I grew up with a dad who believed in Black Panthers. You grew up with a
You're a
dad
skeptic.
that didn't.
Well, I'll be honest. I think before the first time I actually listened to the podcast, I thought that like you could see a Black Panther.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I think it's because I spent too much time around.
Too much time. The believer.
Too much
Too
time.
much time around the believer. Well, any other comments, Misty? Gary?
Just I enjoyed it more the second time. I think
Well-
there's a lot of mountain lions around. We just don't see them. But I was surprised when he said they're not as secretive as we.
Yeah,
as we
that was a
think.
very good point.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that because I hunted a remote area for a long time, and I used to envision mountain lions up in trees. I don't know if I'd read a book or what, but I thought, back
trying
far
to see
back
one.
as I am, I could be lunch for one of these guys. I've thought about it so much. It's almost like I saw a mountain lion, but I didn't. It's like I was aware that there were mountain lions in that area,
Living rent-free
or at least
in your
I thought.
head.
Yeah, I thought they were anyway. But
Yeah.
I agree with Josh. I'm just thinking about what he said. I don't feel like I have a strong enough opinion about mountain lions specifically. But yeah, I'm for confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And I
Life
do-
with confirmation
t-shirt.
bias is just a little more fun than reality.
Well, I just think
Yep.
I think that no, that's not what I'm saying. I just think that some of what it's kind of taken in what Bear John said too. There's times where if you were to say, was Bear in the woods by you, or was he hiding in the woods?
Was a lion in the woods.
No, Bear was talking about like there are people that have walked right by him that don't know he's been right
sure.
there.
Oh,
And if you ask those people, they would say absolutely not, and they would be wrong.
Right.
They'd be
I
wrong.
see the point.
And I'm just saying, if you could say it more efficiently than me, I can
No,
tell like
no,
Clay's
that's
struggling
it.
a little bit, but
No, that's it. And I'm not saying, I've never said there's a breeding population of mountain lions in Arkansas. I happen to be at two different places as the crow flies 80 miles apart, where I saw with my own eyeballs 2 mountain lions. Neither one were black. That's all I'm saying.
But eventually there will be a breeding population. I mean, even
I'd
just
say,
with what
yeah.
Myron
I
said.
would think so, yeah.
And you got to be open to that. All these skeptics have to be open to. I mean, someone is going to say one day, "I saw this," and you're going to have to believe them. It's going to
Yeah.
be true.
Yeah.
And if
I hope
you
it
can
is.
be just as blind by your skepticism as you can by your belief.
Boom, there it is. That was good. You can be just as blind by your skepticism as those who are blinded by their own confirmation bias living outside of reality. Yeah. No, I'm all for it, man. I want there to be a breeding population of mountain lions in Arkansas, and I think there will be as long as deer populations remain stable. I mean, I think there was you talked to so many guys that were like, man, when I was a kid, there were no deer here. There were no turkeys here. And today there's a ton of deer, a ton of turkeys. There were no elk. Now there's elk. I mean, in our lifetime, there could be mountain lions all over the East. Well, thank you guys so much. Merry Christmas. I wish you could have
Merry
some of these
Christmas.
cookies that Juju bought at Sam's.
I would actually
And
like
put
one
on
of
a
those.
plate.
They're very good.
And that
Did
Juju
she really
put
buy
on a
them from
plate.
Sam's?
She did.
Yeah, and put them on a plate and covered them with plastic.
That was the first thing she told us.
Juju.
It was like too much information, Juju. Just,
Yeah.
it's
Some things you
okay.
just
Here's
We
your
don't
cookies.
care.
God bless.
We don't care.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.